75% of the people who are registered for this program, which is pretty remarkable that they joined.
Again, quite a lot of people catch up with me saying, oh, I couldn't attend, I'm really sorry, but I watched your video. So, you know, it really shows that people, you know, who sign up are really engaged and want to, you know, get most of it, for sure.
Yeah.
Let me reach for, I reach for my phone for time, and then I'm back with you.
Okay, no worries.
You know, when one is excited about topic, I can just keep talking and talking and talking. So I need to have a discipline and have a timer next to me. Otherwise, I will never stop talking.
Great. So from the feedback, did you make any change? What sort of changes? The changes you made to this was more sort of like making it more basic and giving a layout, digital transformation.
Not basic, making it very basic, but definitely giving it an introduction rather than just jump into case studies immediately, etc. Because I also run, you know, some of similar part of the course for MBA students at Oxford, as I told you possibly last time. And one of the greatest feedback I got, they really loved, was that journey. That I didn't jump into like, oh, and there is a fintech and that's what they do and blah, blah, blah. But I gave them like evolution, like how it happened, why it's, so I try to give that evolution here as well, so that people understand where we are, why we get there, but not like the whole course is about this. So it will be maybe first 10, 15 minutes of what I say, and then I deep dive into some case studies.
Right.
Yeah. But those case studies, because I wanted to include some examples from different industries. Some of them, and you know, I'm protected by some NDAs and everything. So some of them are that I worked directly with a client on, but some others are just how I use well-known case studies, but just present them to point how, you know, how we can look at this through the Castle framework and see why it was successful case study, for example, if that makes sense. So,
yeah, no,
so just to keep variety of, you know, it's not all banking or insurance, if you like, etc. It's actually no insurance at all there.
The Berkeley course that I oversee, we have a digital transformation course with University of California at Berkeley, and that's interesting as well, because they start off with an entire module, the first week module of explaining what digital transformation is and providing case examples. It's kind of interesting. And even at the end of it, it's sort of like, okay, we've just applied this term digital transformation to cover basically the evolution of data. Right? I mean, it's how we gather and utilize data is effectively what digital transformation is.
You nailed it. You absolutely nailed it. And I don't say it at the beginning. I say, you know, digital transformation is about applying digital into the business model, what blah blah blah. But eventually, my case studies are exactly aligned. You know, they show different kind of like business problems being solved with those case studies. But at the end of the day, you can see that, you know, that no matter where you start, what strategy, what industry, etc., it comes to data at the end. So I couldn't agree more with you.
Yeah, they've got some interesting examples in that one, which are fascinating. They go heavily into the data as well and how to analyze data. So it's almost borderline business analytics. Yeah. Like, I gotta dust off my statistics.
I think the example that I myself got very, you know, like deep dive into, because I was really fascinated when I was in Barcelona for Mobile Week. about 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, Daimler was presenting. And I knew that they are doing a lot of things with data and digital transformation, but now I came across a really nice, case study with Movell that they implemented first in Germany and then in US, etc. And this one is like mind-blowing. Like, you think that they are a automobile industry? No. That's gonna be one of the examples where
okay,
I'm like,
yeah, because one of the examples used in the Berkeley course is Rolls-Royce.
Here you go.
But not the automotive side, the aircraft engine business.
Oh yeah.
They've now got such accurate sensors tracking these engine components that they can predict far in advance when maintenance is required.
Yeah. Well, I wish Boeing had one. Ouch. Ouch. Sorry. That wasn't recorded yet, right?
No, it's just live on YouTube, but I think you're okay.
Thank you. Throwing me under the bus. Anyway, well, hopefully we'll have fun today. I always have fun. Hopefully people will have fun too.
Good. Is there anything you want me to say in advance before I pass it over to you?
No, I think, unless you from your perspective, you want to connect this session to the previous week's session, with any way of form. But other than this, I think I had the chance to introduce myself last week. I know there may be a few people who don't know me, but I don't think, repeating my introduction is really needed. So no. I will go straight into the part 2, if you like.
Great.
You're almost there, right?
We are almost there.
So when you said, okay, let's start last week, and there were like 6 people, I could see like 6 people, and I'm like, wow, that's a Gremium. So I'm like, very, very intimate session here. And then I didn't realize you opened the door, and numbers started going like crazy clock, right?
Yep, exactly. Yeah, that number just keeps going up. Yeah.
No pressure.
Okay. I guess so
if I only can ask you one thing, Alec, because to be honest with you, it's distracting for me to look at the chat as I am speaking, obviously. Yes. So I don't open chat because that also covers my my slides, etc. for me. No. So if there is anything you see that needs attention immediately, or you want to stop me and answer some question, if you can help me with that part, that would be very appreciated.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I was doing last time. Some people, even despite the instructions, still ask questions in the chat window, and so we're in there just saying, listen, you need to ask them in the Q&A section.
Okay, but if you see like I should stop and answer something on a go, it's fine too. It's just that I'm not reading them until I finish my presentation. So if there is something, or if they cannot hear me or anything, I don't see all these comments. So you please help me then.
Okay. Hi Alec. Hi Dorota. Sabina here from Delivery. It's time we will broadcast now. All right.
Yep. Let them in.
All right. So the broadcast has started and you're live on YouTube as well.
Great, thank you. Okay. Hello everyone, and good morning from Colorado on the first day of spring here in the US, and I imagine in the UK as well. And if you could, while we're just waiting for everyone else just to join the session, if you would like to just say hi in the chat window and just let us know where you're joining us from today. If you can find the chat. There we go. Istanbul. Now you see the split, Dorota. This is fascinating, isn't it? Brazil, Moscow, Berlin, Paris, Singapore. I mean, it really is just a global group. It's fantastic.
Perfect.
A few more people, hopefully. The number seems to be slowing down on the uptick. A few people getting late today. Okay, I imagine the number will tick up a little further. Possibly the Thursday scheduling. There are not as many people joining this time as last time. So we'll get started here. And for those of you who don't know, my name is Alec Campbell. I work for Emeritus and lead the digital transformation practice here and oversee a number of courses in the practice area. And we welcome you here today for the second part of our webinar with our guest speaker, Dorota Zimnoch, who's joining us from London. Dorota is a consultant, digital transformation consultant, and runs a company specializing in the fintech area. Not that this presentation will concentrate solely on fintech. Dorota has developed a framework for digital transformation and gave the first part of this session, which hopefully you were able to join, on the framework itself. And today we'll move into some case studies in digital transformation. Dorota, I will pass this over to you in your capable hands, and I will be here in support.
Thank you very much, Alec, and hello, everybody. Thank you very much for opportunity to present to you for a second time. And I really enjoyed the session last week, and I really enjoyed questions being asked because they also influenced the flow of my presentation of this week. I have seen that there were many questions about case studies, and obviously that's what we focus on today. But there were also some comments and questions which made me understand that the level of participants of this course was not exactly the same experience. Therefore, I structured such my presentation that at the beginning I will give some overview and some foundation for digital transformation in general, what it is, why bother, etc. And then build on this as we move on with case studies. When I understand that many people may not have been able to attend last session, therefore, to remind us what we discussed last week, I presented the Castle framework, which basically is the way that helps to approach business challenge and lead to effective and efficient execution. CASL is an acronym which stands from letters, and just to remind us, C stands for challenge, which means that this is where business needs to start by asking themselves what type of the business challenge or business problem or business opportunity do we want to address. Then we move to analysis, and we just to remind us, we discussed here that analysis is not really just comparing ourselves to top 5 competitors of ours, which is unfortunately often the case of analysis, but it needs to be much wider and much deeper, because today we are living in an interconnected world. We are living in the world where we really talk less and less about industries and more about customer, being it B2C customer, B2B customer, in the center of value propositions. So obviously we need to look holistically at the ecosystem. Then we move into strategy. So once we know what we want to achieve, and we know the forces that impact our challenge, then we move into the strategy, which is about, okay, so what is our response to that business challenge? How are we going to address it? And then from strategy, we will move into execution, if you like, which is the tactics part, which really is all the plan, how we are going to deliver our strategy. And we talked about this, that in this part is really very, very important. But if you jump immediately into this part without the first few steps, then you run into risk, if I can use the analogy of selling hamburgers in vegetarian village, where you may have a great idea, but because of not enough of a research, or not enough of the alignment in a strategy, it may not quite fly and deliver the results that you hoped for. Tactics are important also because this is where you measure your activities, and when you measure your activities, obviously that's how you can manage them. From tactics, obviously, then you can learn a lot, and this is the last part of CASTLE, which is learnings, because in the saying that is common, that the only constant thing is constant change, could not apply better and more into the business environment. It's really, and especially in digital transformation, it's not one of activity, it's not one of project, if you like, it's a constant project, and it's a long-term plan rather than the short-term, quick win activities, which could be part of the tactics, but they are not per se on its own the digital transformation for the company. So what that digital transformation really is? The shortest definition I can give for that, and I think many people, if not everybody, will agree with me, is that digital transformation is change. There is no digital transformation where the company is not ready to change. And when we're talking here about a change, we are talking here about big change. We are not talking about tweaking here and there little. Those are improvements, those are automations, but this is not what we call digital transformation. The word transformation has a weight here, and this is really about changing the business, changing from every part of the business is really impacted by digital transformation. So from the business perspective, if you like, digital transformation is about, you can discuss, and everybody will have different kind of a definition of view, but it's really about applying the latest technologies, digital technologies into business that will fundamentally change how the business operates and delivers value for customers. And when we look at that, so what is changing with digital? Well, first of all, focus is changing from product focus into customer focus. And yes, we have, it's almost like a buzzword. Everybody says we are customer centric. But I give you one example. I talked to one of the insurance companies that invested heavily in some analytics and did a lot of segmentation of customers. And they told me that they are absolutely customer centric because now they know exactly which products to push on their customers. Pushing products on customers is not quite customer centric. And so, it requires really understanding the customer needs and supporting customer rather than pushing on customer your solutions. And for that, it requires thinking about customers rather than thinking about products and how to deliver them to customers per se. And if you don't need to, trust my word on this. I like to learn from the best, and obviously many of us will agree that Amazon really sets the standards for customer centricity in many areas. And as you can see, Jeff Bezos talks a lot about customer centricity, and especially about how much you need to be obsessed about customer. Old way of thinking, it's really where the companies are obsessed about other companies, about the competitors. Even the revolution, if you think about fintech revolution, for example, banks are not worried about customers at the end, or will customers leave us, etc. But the first wave was about are the other fintechs risk for us? So they were worrying about other competitors rather than looking at the meritum of why that fintech is developing so much. Why? Because they are delivering better value for customers. So it's important to understand customers in the center. The second thing that is important to say is that it's not about channels anymore. It's not about channels, silos. It's really about access. And it may seem very simple and very obvious, but then again, if we think about how many companies deliver that today, we can see how much is to be done still. Because if we ask for frictionless customer journeys, where company is supporting the customer journey, rather than demanding customer to use this channel, that channel, this way and that way, that is still a long way to go. And then the third pillar, if you like, of digital transformation, I would say, is about, and the big change is about moving from functions into culture. It's not like you will, it is very still popular that we have chief digital officers or chief innovation officers as a part of the organization structures, and even of innovation office or digital office, etc. And there is a reason for that, obviously, because you want to have a unit that will be kind of a provider of change and driving the change. But really, to be successful with digital transformation, it impacts the whole organization. And that means that it impacts all culture of everybody in the organization. What does it mean? It's, if some of you remember last week, I talked about this innovation lab that one of the banks set up and wasn't really successful example. You see the difference that we discovered there when I look at this case was that those people who were in innovation lab, they had everything what you can see here about digital culture. So they were allowed to make mistakes, they were collaborating, they were open and transparent, but the rest of the organization wasn't. And so communication and connection between, okay, this playground in an innovation lab and what they bring to the business didn't really, link together. And that was a challenge because, it almost created a big communication gap where the two parts of the business couldn't, really communicate properly. So it's really about the culture and each and every individual person. So if your innovation person is okay to make a mistake and try and learn and innovate, that should be any person in the organization that is allowed to do the same. It's not like any separate one unit that has some special, privileges, if you like, or rights, and not the rest of the organization. So that should be really the culture. And we will talk about this a little bit more in a moment. So if you remember, the first letter of CASTLE stands for C, for challenge. So why really bother about this digital transformation? So what are the challenges that can be solved with digital transformation? And when you look, when you look at the various studies and whatnot, you really can summarize this in 3 categories. And all projects I work on, they could belong to one or several of those categories. We talk here about digital transformation is there to change customer experience. And when I say change, I mean the big change and the wide scope of this change, not just tweaking, but it's really about changing model. It's really about changing approach towards customers. One example I can give here is if you want to ask yourself as you represent some company, if your company would be ready to direct your customers to your competitor if you cannot provide the service that your customer asks for. So can you change your business model such that if customer asks you for a product and you don't have this product, you will say, my competitor, has it, and this is the link, or you redirect to your customer, to your competitor. That's one of the examples of the companies that really put it around customer centricity, and they're really customer obsessed in that way. Competitive advantage and operational excellence are the other examples. And obviously what's the other pillars, sorry. And what it's really about is about the benefits that business can realize with that, which is about revenue and profitability, customer satisfaction, which adds to obviously revenue and profitability, but also productivity, all the cost reductions, speed to market, and also as competitive advantage suggests, it's all about differentiation and winning, the crowd. Because if you think about this, going forward, really companies, it's so much easier now to copy solutions and copy products and copy ideas, but it's not really easy to copy the culture. It's not really easy to copy this digital mindset, and that's really what's in the future gonna differentiate companies. So obviously, those are the things that can be achieved with digital transformation. So when we talk about competitive advantage, what would really give the companies competitive advantage? As I said, culture is the one. And what does that really mean? First of all, and I will repeat it several times, and you will see this in case studies as well, leadership is a very, very important part of creating culture. And what I mean by leadership is that each and every person, especially in the leadership team, needs to accept the fact that they are embarking on change and they will be leading change and they need to support it. I very often see the case where it starts with the big ideas. We will be digital, we will move forward, we will transform, etc. But when it comes to my world, operations, technology, etc., then there is a pushback. Oh, no, mine is working fine. Don't touch mine. Just connect with all those digital tactics to mine because mine is okay, right? Because there is a resistance to change. So leadership and endorsement of, yes, we're changing, and we accept that we are changing is very important. And that support of leadership is very important. Foster big and digital thinking. It's again, it's not, obviously ideas can be different and solutions can be different, but it's really about, about long-term vision and long-term change. It's not really, you can start with a small projects, and that's probably smart thing, especially, if the company can risk a lot with like one move to become fully digital. You may do it in phases and in steps, but at the end of the day, and ultimately you are seeing the big goal at the end of it. And obviously, things like encouraging out-of-the-box thinking among employees, which I will talk about this a little bit later as well. This okay to fail culture and fail fast and move on and learn from this. We are talking here about innovation. Digital transformation means applying new innovative technologies and solutions, etc., to my business. So, there may be not often proof and 100%, certainty that all the ideas will work. Therefore, this okay to fail culture is very, very important. Also, that flat structure, as I said, it's all about culture and it's not about functions anymore. So the more horizontally, even structure, the easier it is really driving a change. If it's too many steps, approvals and everything, it's not really supporting the innovative, agile, lean project management, and etc. And very important part of the culture of digital culture is also collaboration. It's about interdisciplinary teams from different parts of different units working together so that they can holistically go through customer journey, for example, and not again in silos as it was with like silos of channels, for example. When it comes to strategies, on this one, one of the examples how to drive this culture is here is the example of Stephen Bird, with whom I had an opportunity to work in the past and talk to. And he actually told me that one of the very first things they learned was serving the startups that were in the industry, and not only, and really infusing that startup attributes and their culture into back into their business. So this customer obsession, which I talked about, and prototyping with customers, so really making sure that you deliver value for customer, but also, hiring the right talent that will help foster this digital culture. Obviously, also focus on technology, and without that, you don't have really digital transformation. Also applying methodologies that allow speedy delivery, and the projects that are not taking months and months, but you can deliver projects in weeks in an agile way again. And last but not least, but very, very important, and often kind of the challenge for both big companies but small one as well, to be honest with you, it's about focus. Once you have this, once you set your ship on the course of digital transformation, you really stay focused, because today's world is changing very fast, and there are new ideas, new competitors, and everything. And I've seen this with my clients several times, where it was like, it was in the comfort zone. Oh, maybe we actually, turn to the right, turn to the left, etc. And then you kind of dilute your efforts, and people who are on the journey get lost because they don't see one clear vision. And this is where the whole digital transformation project can fall apart. So focus is very, very important. When it comes to strategy, we can look at several examples. I just listed some of those here because we will look at the case studies, so you will see this in a real examples, if you like. But it's really a question whether we want to, use digital transformation for evolution or revolution, or more revolution as disruption. Because obviously, one and the other can have a long-term objective and can mean really significant or overall change of the business, but the tactics, if you like, or activities may be very different. You may also ask yourself in a strategy whether you want to innovate from outside in, also through open innovation, so partnerships with startups, partnerships with other companies, or you want to do this, for example, through inside-out innovation, so from inside ideas and through the self-disruption. And I will talk about this through the case studies in a moment. And then finally, we are talking here about the way of operations, which will be, linear processes, connected processes, powered by a very strong analytics, agile processes, and collaborative environment. These are really key pillars, if you like, of successful digital transformation. When we talked about challenges, right, the next in our castle will be A, stands for analysis, right? So let's look a little bit, and again, many of us may not and say like, yeah, that's obvious. I'm not, hearing anything I haven't seen before or heard before. But let me show you just one example, which was really what I heard from my customers. Yeah, we know it, and then there was a wow moment or aha moment from them when I showed. You do hear those things often, but do you listen to those things? So let me explain what I mean. So obviously, what's driving digital transformation? First and the most is customers and technology. How most customers, just so that the flow of our presentation will be consistent, to a little bit later started with technology, but I don't want to say that this is a priority number one, really. What's happening with technology is really driving the digital transformation. And this is a fascinating example for me. I like particularly DNA sequencing. If you only look how quickly and rapidly the cost of technology is falling, you will understand why you experience this change almost like from nowhere, very, very rapidly. Because if in 2000 it was $2.7 billion for one DNA sequence extraction, and already in 2014 it was $1,000, and today everybody has access and can do your own DNA sequencing. That is really showing how powerful and how quick that change is. And obviously the other important fact, if we think about this, and I believe sometimes it's really worth to do this a little bit of stop and think and understand the trends rather than just embark on them, because that gives you some extra advantage to how to drive the transformation. So in the past, if you think about this, it was mainly one trend at a time. We talked about mainframe first, and then internet came on, and then mobile came on, and obviously, there were some overlaps, but it was almost one trend at a time. Like today, it's not the case anymore. Today, at the very same time, we're talking about cloud computing, we're talking about blockchain, we're talking about artificial intelligence, IoT, all coming together. Just few examples of technologies and convergence of these technologies and opportunities that are coming with it, but also threats and risks that are coming with it is really, really important to understand so that you can be successful with your activities. Obviously, as I said, it's not only about technology, and actually it's probably even more driven by consumer trends. connected, personalized, and I want it now culture, if you like. I particularly, was surprised with this example, which was a big kind of news this week. I saw on one of the portals that there were Gucci shoes with the worn out shoes or with the signs of being worn already that are being sold on the market, and people buy them. And I'm thinking, okay, so we live in a now culture that we cannot really afford time to buy the new shoes and wear them. But we need to buy the worn already, which is a little bit, of challenging idea to absorb. But then again, it shows how quickly we move. There is a movie in a cinema, I want to have it on Netflix, right? It also shows how the world became connected. If you think about, we talked about 6 degrees of separation in the past between us and other people. Today, it's, studies show it's about 3 people, any degree of separation. So, and you can experience this on LinkedIn if you use one. You can almost reach any business person with the 3 connections. So obviously customers are changing. And when I show you this slide, you will say that's obvious. Obviously, they want convenience, they want protection, relevance, and so on and so forth. And you will be right. Yes, that's what customers are looking for. And now is that moment. So, okay, you know the trends, but are you really translating this into what does it mean for me? What those trends mean for me? And here is an example where I talked to a bank and we looked at, okay, so what does those trends really mean for you as a bank? And this is really important to notice because, only when we understand or they understood this impact, it was okay. Now we see where we need to change. So banks in the past thought that they have an effect of scale because obviously they have customers, so they have reach, they have scale, etc. Yes, but scale and network is not exactly the same. What I mean by that, are those customers engaged in activities with you, or these are just the records in your database? So do you really have a proper connection with them? Do you have the network that other businesses have? The second question is about customer data. Okay, so do you do own customer data, but do you own customer relationships? Because it's not exactly the same thing. In insurance business, for example, insurance is the insurance industry owns probably the most data of all industries I can think about. Yet, when you think about how they execute and do they have a relationship with customers, then you obviously, can challenge this point very much. Also about trust, it was told that, bank is a trust authority and, that's why people keep money in the bank. Yes, perfect. But is it really exclusive and forever? If we go back to 2008, and how actually financial services are still recovering from the broken trust of that time, then you're wondering if it's still, the same comfort zone that the banks can operate and insurance and others in the space. And expertise, again, is being told, but we know we have this expertise. Many in challenger banks, for example, are set up by those who left banks, but bankers with the experience, who actually knew what was not working and how to make it different and how to make it around the customers, in fact, indeed. So only when the impact was understood, then obviously the bank started engaging and saying, now we see why and when and what we need to do. Because yes, we are losing those, or we don't have those, we are not in the status quo as we used to be anymore. And, understanding the impact, this is just one example, how this translates into real world. This is an example of Amazon, who is not, that is not the company, that is financial services company. But then you look at what they offer, all the products, and you're wondering, are they not? Are they really not? So again, this comes to my point of analyzing not only your top competitors, but really going wide with spectrum of, analysis. And this is really, really important to realize that. So after challenge and analysis, obviously we come into the strategy. And we wonder, what type of strategies can we apply? So now comes the point where I will talk about case studies. Some of those are examples of clients that I worked with directly. Some others are general ones. I wanted to expand the scope behind the fintech only, if you like, or financial services, because that was the request in the last call. But what I really want to focus on in these case studies is to show you, how the business challenge was understood and what is really driving the digital transformation in those examples. Because, I think this is really the most important thing and the starting point for anybody to understand how to do and why to do digital transformation and how to be successful in it. So I hope you enjoy these examples. So we all know this big data company called Starbucks, I believe. And yes, I meant to say big data company because, okay, we may think that this is the company that offers, a lovely place where we can meet with other people and enjoy our coffee, etc. And that's all true. Obviously, they are in the coffee business. But if you look at the business model, especially with these activities around the digital flywheel, as they call the digital strategy, then you will realize that Starbucks is really about data and is shifting business model where the coffee obviously is one element of the strategy, but it's really about owning the customer experience, if you like. And the fact that you can walk with your phone to Starbucks, and while you're waiting for your coffee being made, Starbucks recognizes that your Spotify, your playlist on Spotify, and starts playing your favorite tunes. That is going far beyond the coffee experience per se. It's all about how to connect all the services that are relevant to provide customers with what they really value and what they're looking for. So, for Starbucks, when they launched this reward program, obviously, with the millions of records they have on hand right now, they can also influence the industry and drive this in the direction, so that's obviously for them also winning becoming the leaders of the space, if you like. So winning competitive advantage and making sure that other companies, cannot easily copy they model anymore. And also, obviously, that type of approach encourages building ecosystem and encourages partnerships, because this is how the model is being approached through building partnerships. But the strategy for Starbucks is very clear. They are in the center with their brand, and they are the one who will own the relationship with customer, and they will be the one both connection, the functional and emotional brand connection, if you like, with the customer. The other example which I would like to present is the example of Under Armour. And here it is about, I call it new product, but it's really about, again, creating a new experience. So if we think about what's the business challenge for Under Armour, it was about, they were obviously providers of sports, clothing, but they realized that it's really risky just to limit yourself to that part. Because customers were moving, they needed more, and they wanted, that they realized this importance of the community and owning the relationship. So Under Armour decided to invest in data and invest into the connected fitness platform, which basically, through acquisition of several fitness apps, if you like, etc., it created the whole ecosystem where now, the products are facilitating the whole journey towards the healthy lifestyle, if you like, for customers. So again, understanding how first of all, through analysis, Under Armour understood what's the challenge and what customers really want. Also help them solving the different challenge. So far, before they could collect the data, as they now can through this platform, they were actually applying the same kind of set of standards to different geographies, if you like. And the example that they like to present is that since they introduced the connected fitness, they were able to identify, for example, a new developing trend related to the running and hiking, if you like, in Australia, which they would never before be able to realize. Or, for example, the trend that in the different geographies, the shoes have different durability because of the weather conditions and others. So they need to, maintain stock differently and so on. Those were really very strong drivers from data that they identified by extending the offer, which you could say was offline before, because you could buy online or offline product, but that was it really, to understanding much more about customers, how the product is being used, to get really dynamic feedback and to reply to that feedback through adding new services, as this is really, as I said, the whole digital transformation and digital journey is never-ending process, right? It's a constant process of developing analysis and updates to your value proposition and then testing them again. So it's a wheel process, if you like. Another example I would like to talk about is the Alfa Bank. And this is the example of the bank that operates in Belarus. It's a bank that is present in many countries, but here is the example of Belarus. And why I choose this example? Because of the strategy which they took towards introducing the digital value proposition, if you like. So the challenge of that bank was that it was very traditional bank, if you like, paper-driven. Customers were traditional customers going to branches a lot. So obviously it was not very efficient in a way. There was some mobile banking app in their launch, but not really launched successfully, and people didn't know about the brand, etc. So that wasn't really working very well, and there was hardly any conversion. So the new management several years ago decided that the way forward for them will be to disrupt from within. As I call it, which means that basically they set in parallel to the existing business as usual retail banking, they set up the digital banking, almost mirroring the structure in terms of like, using the same products and services, but offering this through the digital value proposition. Not only this strategy helped, in a competitive way, but in a positive way, challenge and drive the change inside the business as usual, if you like, because they were able to show and prove that change is possible and this is how you can do it. But also they immediately were able to create the value for customers who were waiting for digital bank, because they realized that if they wanted to build the digital bank offering on current structure with current legacy platform, etc., that would be very challenging, if not impossible, in the structure that they were operating in. So one of the strategies, as you can see here, and it's not uncommon actually, especially if you look, for example, in the fintech world for challenger banks, it will be to start, or even big banks that are launching the digital value proposition. And I can say, for example, Goldman Sachs with Marcus was a very similar concept. So it's basically setting parallel digital business that will start building the culture, setting processes for digital. And at one point, there will be an integration and moving from one to the other. This is a very powerful strategy. And especially, as I said, in the businesses where the brand and that change, that immediate shift, not immediate, but that big shift in one go may not be really, the best idea to approach, because it could be too risky. So Alpha Bank, thanks to this approach, was able to nurture the talent that then was seconded, if you like, from the digital into business as usual. And that was the way how they could also be like incubated to provide the new talent into the organization to start changing the business as usual processes. And it was a very powerful strategy altogether. Another example which I want to talk about is example where you can focus on achieving operational excellence. So the previous examples, we talked about changing the model or expanding the model, reaching new target audience, if you like. This one is about achieving operational excellence, and I'm talking here about Hena Hotel, which is based in Japan, and this is the hotel that decided as a strategy to be fully digital, if you like. So there are hardly any employees, like real people working there. All the staff that is really computerized. It's either as they say. And to be honest with you, if one of you could write in the chat why that is, maybe you came across the same example, and because I couldn't find anywhere why. But there are like proper robots serving customers who speak in Japanese. But when it comes to English-speaking customers, they are served by dinosaurs. And I find this quite interesting, and I'm still to find out why that is. But the whole concept here is that the hotel that was very successful in the past, five-star hotel, very luxurious, etc., decided that they will move into fully, and will be first in the world, fully digital hotel, where all will be served by robots. And the first results that are being shown are very positive, and obviously there is this element of being first here, but they claim that actually they can operate on a 90% cheaper on operational cost than they were before with the full like human service, if you like, and the human staff, which is quite a impressive number. Obviously, we could talk here about, okay, that digital transformation drives this kind of change, which is about, replacing humans with robots, etc. What does that mean for the, losing jobs and risk of that? And, we can talk about this separately. I didn't really spend much time or focus on this in this presentation, because I believe this is a very important topic on its own. And separate, but I want to highlight this point that yes, if some of you wonder what, is this a risk, then I definitely say it's one of the things to take into consideration. But if your main driver is operational excellence, that's obviously the great examples of how you can drive this digital transformation there. The next examples I wanted to talk about is DigiBank by DBS and their partnership with Kasisto. Basically, it's really, this example is to show how bank responded to the challenge with understanding market and what strategy they took towards launching their bank. So basically, DBS again had the challenge that the expansion and operational costs in several markets were very, very high, and procedures were very complicated because of how the bank and legacy systems were structured. So bank decided that they will launch, they separate digital brand, if you like. But unlike in Alpha Bank example, where it was all built in-house, obviously some solutions were leveraged, some platforms were leveraged from the market, but the whole project was driven inside and was created in-house, if you like. Here, the strategy was different. Here, the strategy was of partnership with several startups or scale-ups to provide the services. So rather than build them from scratch inside organization, it was a partnership of several solutions. And Kasisto provided a virtual assistant. So this is the bank that you really cannot call anybody other than it's really all virtual assistants. So, and even though, you know, this is the case, in the first few months of launch, they acquired in India 1.8 million customers on the platform. So that just shows what's the power if you apply technology successfully and properly, what can be the impact of that on your business model. So this is seen as one of the most successful examples of how the traditional bank managed to introduce the digital bank offer. Also, that model allowed then for DBS to expand to other markets as well, because it was easier and less, less risky strategy, if you like, to go with the digital value proposition rather than, for example, fully loaded, multi-channel operations, which are really, it's a lot of investment for sometimes, unknown result. So this is a very interesting study, and as I said, this one is all about partnerships and how to create value through those partnerships. I will talk about partnerships a little bit more later in the general comments, if you like to. Next example is again Sterling Banks, and this is also actually showing a little bit more or echoing what I've just showed with the DBS, but this one is a challenger bank, and I included this because I also wanted to show that it's not just the big corporates that are driving, using strategies like this for the digital innovation, but also smaller companies, through the partnerships and linking several startups and offering value proposition, they can compete with the big banks, for example, that have a large group of customers already and reach. Because here, thanks to partnerships and thanks to distributing risk as well between those partnerships, but then at the end of the day, giving the value for customers that customers look for is a very powerful strategy. So you can do it in-house if you want, and that's one strategy, but you can do it through partnerships with other companies. And I will talk about this in a second as well more. Another example, and this one is really one of my favorite examples, even though A, I didn't work on it, and B, it's not really the industry I'm very experienced about, but I do understand, the principles of digital transformation, so I can understand the case very clearly. And what it is, so Daimler, again, it's a company that provides cars, right? So you can say it's automobile company. And now, but they obviously didn't want to be, Blockbuster. They didn't want to be Nokia that missed the point, of change, and then obviously, suffer from competition coming and eating their cake. So looking at the changes that are happening on the market, they launched something first in Germany and then in US as well. They launched a platform called Mubo. And possibly many of you are using it. But Mubo is basically the application that allows and gives individuals advice of the best mean of transportation if you want to get from point A to B. Now, if you think about this, obviously, you may think like, why would Daimler want to do that? It's really, it's really counterintuitive to their business case, because obviously they want to say that the best mean of transportation, if you like, will be to buy our car and to use our car, right? While here they will say, oh, actually, car sharing will be a better option for you in this sense, or maybe you should use the train or tram because it will be faster or cheaper for you to get from A to B. So you will not really, you don't really need to use our fleet or our car or rent our car, etc. So they are, willing to compromise on the immediate wins, if you like, but then really helping customers. Now, if you look at this further and you think about this further, you will realize that what Daimler is really doing, and I was in Barcelona a few weeks ago in the Mobile World Congress or World Mobile Congress, and I was absolutely blown away by by this company. They were presenting on the stage and they were showing the examples of how they invest in digital transformation. It was fascinating. And so when you think about this, they really move towards the longer term vision, which is about now they are considered to be leaders of the smart cities. When the world is moving towards 5G and the world is moving towards connected world, they are really ahead of this curve, or they are staying ahead of this curve, because now through the years that they had this platform, they could analyze how people are moving, where they're moving, like what are the trends around, and they can build on those trends. And they are not only focusing anymore just solely on the value proposition related to just, making better cars, because they do realize that at one point in time, when we move towards sharing economy, when less and less people may want to own their own cars, but also in self-driving solutions, etc., this really impacts the way how we will really be mobile in the future, if you like. So to protect the value proposition in the business and staying in the business, they need to think ahead, and they need to think like, what is the other space, where they can put their strengths there and build on their capabilities and become really leader and be front runner in that space. Because obviously smart cities is still, in a way we envision the end state is still quite a journey, but they are already ahead of it. And today you cannot say, as you could not really say that Starbucks is a coffee company, if you think about the business model, it's very difficult to call Daimler the automobile company as it is per se, because it's really one of the most powerful data companies, I would say, definitely very active in a smart city space and connected world space, if you like. Another example and another case study, it's about this one. This is example about expanding target audience. So again, there's when we think about digital transformation, we think about, okay, so how are we changing our business, our business processes, streamline them using the digital technologies. This is example where, how if you want to stay relevant for customers, how you can keep up with trend. Cookies is a new generation of the juicers, is, silent juicer as they call it. So basically, the machine that produces the juice, if you like. But what they are, the newest model, as I understand, that is coming to the market, is equipped with artificial intelligence. Basically, it's equipped with button that when you push the button with your fingerprint, the machine is able to scan your basic functions of, like your pulse, your temperature, etc. And will recommend you what type of the juice you should actually drink right now, rather than what you are thinking, and obviously you can still stay with your apple juice if it's your favorite, but it may actually recommend that, because of your condition you're in right now, you may actually need to drink some beetroot juice, if you like. And that's one of the another examples, where digital transformation means transforming, obviously, the whole way of thinking and expanding, looking at customers, not just like, this is the product that is used, but it's all about collecting the data. And if you carefully, reflect on the examples I've already showed altogether, you will realize that really data is the main driver for digital transformation in every of those cases we are looking at right now. Because that is really, in terms of understanding customers, in terms of achieving operational excellence, this is really essential. If you start, your journey, it's really the starting point to understand and make sure that you invest in in the data and understanding these data patterns. Another example which I really like in a similar space is the example of Target company, the retailer in the States that partnered with Pinterest. And here, the digital transformation and the advantage they offer their customers, they discovered that, through the search, it's obviously complicated where customers try to, search for like three-seater sofa, modern style, for example. It's a complicated keyword search, etc. People use different words. So what they offered, basically, you can upload your picture from Pinterest or your own when you take, a sofa picture at your friend's place and say, find me similar. And that's what the system will do for you. So obviously it's creating, again, all the new value, but, with the same, building very much closer relationship with customers, because obviously you can only see how that further transforms the business and creates additional value. Once you recommended this sofa, then you can start recommending cushions for this and so on and so forth, and drive the whole new e-commerce, powerful e-commerce strategy by expanding what was today, let's say, the traditional way of keyword search into more what customers really are looking for. So it's more personalized, it's more to the point. I want it now, and I want the relevant thing that I'm looking for, rather than scroll through through several pages before I find what I was looking for. Another example I want to talk about is, again, to show how digital transformation can be introduced into media and publishing, for example. So this is through the company called Inecart. This is a company that was created in Japan. And basically, if I want to use the one sentence, how to describe them, I would say that they are the Shazams for pictures, which means that you can basically take if you, for example, browsing the folder Vogue, you can take a picture of the model in the Vogue, and immediately this application will provide you with information, what clothes is this model wearing. It will give you the information where you can buy these clothes, what are the prices, what is the mean of transportation, how you can get to the closest store or buy it online, and so on and so forth. So again, it starts with taking the rather traditional way, if you like, if it was about, reviewing the traditional paper Vogue magazine, and taking it all to digital space. And I'm using Vogue as one of the obviously brands, but you can imagine any publishing brand can leverage this technology right now and this functionality. And in this way, it's really, expanding, and it's really taking the value proposition to the digital world, as it wasn't the same way before. So another case study, and it's probably the last one I had on my list, was I did mention last week that I'm also a big enthusiast of the blockchain technology, and I believe that blockchain will change, will be very important trend in how the world will change in the future once the technology is matured. So here's the example of Xane working together with Porsche, and this is also the example of creating new product, but also expanding value proposition through the digital transformation. So what Xane did for Porsche, it helped to transform them by developing the IoT, blockchain-powered IoT solution that is embedded in a car. And from now on, for example, it offers you functionality that you can not only control and give access to your car remotely to whomever you want, because you can track who was who drove your car, for example, and open it remotely for somebody who approaches the car. And for example, if you have a courier company that is approaching, you can ask them to drop your parcel, for example, in the boots because you are away and you don't want them to come to your house, for example. You prefer them to drop it in the boots. So That's a very interesting concept, how, you know, how new technology is creating new opportunities. But what I want to say here, because I very often see also kind of a trap, but also a question that is being asked to me. So what is really driving the digital transformation? Because very often is initiated from the technology side. And this is okay, and this is okay when the technology is making us aware of the you know, available technologies and what the power of those could be in a business. But I haven't seen successful examples where technology wasn't really linked to the business problem at the end. So what I want to say is that, you know, no matter how exciting it may be, all the technologies, etc., if you really want to be successful with your digital strategy, you really need to go back to questioning yourself in the first place. What's my business challenge really is, which comes to our, you know, through the cycle, if you like, to our beginning of Castle, which will be C4, stands for challenge. And if you skip this step, then obviously you run into risk of you know, delivering solution that is not really will not be used or not needed for the business. Moving on, then, you know, if we go back to after those examples, we now reflect back again to the castle, and now you know, it's not in circle anymore, just for visual representation. But this is really, you know, answer to the question. Okay, so where do we start? Often people ask me, okay, so where do I start? How would I structure this? What do I do first, etc. And I would say that the very first steps is exactly, you know, and this will be like always, you know, I will repeat it very often. It's okay. So why do you want to do digital transformation? What are the things, pain points that you want to solve? And I want to mention one point, because some people asked me even last week, is this possible that analysis comes before a business objective? And I say yes, but it's like, again, you can look at this almost like a circle in a circle. So yeah, so it may happen that you did analysis of the market and you identified new trend, but then you ask yourself, okay, so what business objectives would that trend we could achieve in our business, and then go back to analysis and strategy, etc. So it is possible, you know, the drivers of change can be from different places, but the project should always start with, okay, so what's the business objective? The other very important thing I would like to also mention from the experience when I work with my customers driving the digital transformation with them is there may be a business challenge, and so leadership will also endorse it, and you know, the top leadership, and will say, okay, we are doing digital transformation. And then we have a town hall with the CEO who will say, from now on, we will be digital. And, you know, and this is the direction we're going to. Unless employees will understand the vision where we're heading to, it is very, you know, it is high risk that they will not be on board if they won't see that end goal. And this is really important for those people who are driving digital transformation. Is their responsibility to make sure that, you know, that people are not just asked for doing the thing, you know, because now we are changing, so you need to change, but it's also see that end results. And a good example of that I can show you is, you know, where I was doing digital transformation for bank, and I was launching digital channels to what used to be before more traditional of the branch and phone channels mainly. There was a huge pushback from branches, for example, who were afraid to lose their customers, you know, and lose their business, therefore, because they didn't envision the whole picture. And only and obviously you need to acknowledge the fact that people who are asked to change and they see that change is coming, there will be a lot of, you know, challenges to deal with, like fear of losing my job. okay, so now they are implementing this artificial intelligence, and I risk my job, so I will resist that change because I still want to have my, my job. So because of that, it's really important to understand this, and the way to address it is through that explanation, where are we heading as a business, and what challenge and what are we solving, so that people are with you on the same page, and also how are we going to get there. This is extremely important, and as obvious as it sounds, it comes to my surprise very, very often that it is not really addressed. And one of the things I talked or touched a little bit last week, and also here in these slides, you can also see this as one of the points, is understanding that and understanding the power of communication in successful digital transformation, and understanding attributes of the change agent, who needs to really take into consideration people factors, not only technology, not only operational processes, but it's also about the culture change and the human impact on employees, etc. It's really important then to realize who is the team or who are the main leaders of that change, because again, it's very often that it's somehow a shortcut being done in a business, that since there is a word digital comes equals technology, so that is technology driving it. And there is, again, nothing wrong in that if it justifies and there's a right talent in the organization to do it in technology. But the challenge I've seen again with my customers was often I'm invited to do audit in a business, for example, of what's in there now and what type of technology we need to implement. And I cannot tell you how many times I discover with my customers that there's a lot of technology available already, but because it was technology driven, technology delivered solution, but then business didn't feel, responsibility for it. And those functions were not really utilized. It almost feels to me like we are getting more and more advanced and enhanced mobile phones right now with so many functions. But if we ask ourselves, how many functions each of us is using in this mobile phone, we probably realize that we are not utilizing 100%. And it's almost the same concept in the business. So it's a lot of investment is going on into technology, but if it's not linked to the, and connected to business KPIs and understanding, okay, how are we going then to use these solutions and how are we going to drive business and our business objectives, there is a lot of risk in there that you will have a very good solution, but you will not have a driver to so you have a fleet of wonderful cars, but nobody will know how to drive them, or something will be missing to really deliver business value out of it. So I hope now, with talking about these examples and talking about overall kind of a digital transformation pillars and journey, it becomes a little bit more clear for you as well how that, framework that we talked about, the custom framework, can really help you to first answer the question, where do I start? How do I start? What are the questions I need to address and answer, etc. So coming to almost end of my presentation, because I really want to have time to answer your questions as well, and thank you for posting them. I will open them in a moment. I want to touch also on this point of open innovation, because people also ask me, okay, so you talk a lot about culture, driving digital culture. Where do I start? How do I do it? And so natural first step in many examples, unless it's building business from the beginning, digital business, but when it comes to transformation, and you probably find yourself somewhere on this slide with your organization as well, is doing a lot of in-house corporate innovation, if you like. So it will be, all the creative workshops, idea management, design thinking, and so on and so forth, new product developments, and that's all I believe that when it's all linked to, to business objectives, and we know what we want to achieve and how we want to, like what skills we want to nurture, those are all very, very powerful tactics. However, in the fast-moving world as we are right now, I believe that the strategy that is really powerful strategy is the one around open innovation. And what I mean by that, open innovation is working through partnerships and involving other, like startups and other companies to work with you and develop powerful solutions. If you remember, the first case I started today with was about Starbucks, and just as an example, Starbucks, when entered China, partnered with Alibaba. And that was you cannot say any of them is really startup person anymore. But through that partnership, really the tremendous value was created for both of the companies, and it was a great success of the partnership. Therefore, I believe that's the right way, to move forward. And I always, encourage businesses to look at this, is how to partner and how to work with the startups for many reasons. This is how you can acquire talent, how you can acquire idea. This is how you can support your IT, which always is exhausted with resources on BAU projects, etc. So there is a lot of benefits why you would want to do that. And there are also many strategies as well. So obviously it requires looking at the strategies, which way is the best to drive this digital transformation, because you can work with startups, in incubators, accelerators, etc., and develop value through that. But you can also invest in startups through building some ventures, so being like almost equal partner, or buy some of the solutions from them, or buy startups per se. That's another way how you can integrate solutions inside your business. For those who are interested to learn more and would like to, deep dive, there's a lot of, literature available and case studies. But one that I would encourage you to look at is the source that I'm giving here, which is Nesta.org. They published several frameworks, winning together, scaling together, which I find very, very powerful and very helpful resource to understand where to start, how to scout, whom to work with, what are the risks, when it makes sense, where it doesn't make sense to partner, etc. So I would encourage you, if you want to learn more, this is the very useful source to look at. Also, when we come to the point of the digital transformation case studies per se, I also would like to encourage you, if you didn't see this before, to go to World Economic Forum pages, where they have hundreds of case studies of the digital transformations over years now collected and published from different industries. So obviously I show you several examples from financial world and few from retail, etc. But I know that people were interested in oil and gas, or hospitality, hotel travel, and so on. So there is a lot of cases there. I would really recommend you to look at the page, because it's a very useful source of information. And so when you work to the startup, one last comment I would like to say is that the strategies may be very different on the different levels of engagement, if you like, right? So if you start with idea stage, you may have different tactic, which could be through incubators, hackathons, whatnot, and you can work with different companies. And then when you go through prototypes phase, then you may consider involving into accelerators, company buildings, and deeper you go, it could be joint ventures, etc. So this is just one example how that open innovation culture is embraced by MetLife insurance company. So coming back to the point of the castle. So whichever way you will go through the whole process, really, whether you will do the strategy of evolution, revolution, and you will partner, etc. But the whole important point I want to say, which I believe is it will be obvious for you because you're on this course, so obviously you are aware digital transformation is not a choice. This digital transformation, if you don't embark on the journey, even with small steps and then going bigger, you are likely to miss the train and risk your business as it is today. So that was my last slide. I hope you found the examples and the information useful. And now let me move into the questions. Yes,
yeah, just a quick one here. There are quite a few people. You mentioned a couple of resources just in your last few slides there of where to find case studies. And Peter asked the first question as well, is looking for a full write-up of the Starbuck, and a lot of people now in the chat window wondering where those were. Can we, if you can just jot those down for me, I'll share them with everyone in a resource page within the course.
Yes, I will.
And add a few of my own resources where people can do additional reading on cases for this. Harvard has a fantastic digital initiative with a lot of great information for people.
Perfect. Yes, I'm very happy to share the sources I use, and then obviously you can build on that. So I understand Peter will be satisfied as many others as well asking for it. So I will move to a question from Christina. Thanks for, do you have another example of blockchain technology? Okay, and there is a question. Thanks for good examples so far. Besides customer-centric and culture, what is your take on creativity and how can creativity support digital transformation? Yeah, that's an interesting question, and thank you, Christina, for that. Obviously, for me, the creativity and fostering the curiosity and fostering, what Steve Jobs used to call stay hungry, stay foolish is very important. And again, it's through the organization, through every person in the organization. So it's this open-minded culture, and part of being creative is also encouraging this is also, in my opinion, going hand in hand with, okay to fail. So because creativity, takes you out there to the areas that may not have been tested before. So I say it's important talent. Obviously, you cannot, demand every person in the organization being equally creative. But I think it's an attribute of the individuals who are working around the processes and procedures and developing the product. And there are a lot of ways, like design thinking is one example how obviously this creativity can be translated into solutions at the end. So so creativity is important. It's an attribute which very, very supports the digital transformation, but yet again it's not requirement from everybody in a company, as the staying open and ready for change would be imperative for everybody in driving this digital culture. Examples of blockchain, I have a lot of them, and I could really do all the separate call, if you like, about this, because it's really something I'm working on a daily basis, if you like. So we can start as small as talk about smart contracts, for example, which is the solution used with blockchain, which basically uses logic if then, which means if the criteria being met, then then the action is immediately started. And example of this would be Fizi by AXA that implemented the late flight insurance, for example, right? So basically it works as simple and static, and few other companies that provide this, which works basically the way that when the flight is delayed, automatically it's being recognized by the system, and if you have the insurance, by the time you get off the plane, you have money in your account because the system automatically paid you insurance by recognizing that the plane was delayed, for example, and that's done on blockchain. As I say, there are lots of examples. Supply chain is one of the examples where where, for example, IBM works with Walmart or a few other providers and on the food supply chain, for example, and is offering a solution where you can very quickly identify, for example, if there is some food poison or some problem with the provider. You can very easily identify at which point that there was some issue with, for example, that food, and so you can very easily trace, like what's the source of that poison, for example, and can very easily treat the cause. In the past, it was almost 18 days. Today, it's 18 seconds to discover this, for example. As I say, there's a lot of cases. I encourage you, Christina, to connect with me if you want on LinkedIn, and I can talk more. Or if there's a lot of interest, we can talk with Alex to have another call on that one. How do companies manage their manpower reduction, which any digital transformation entails? Can you give example of that handle it end to end? Yes, so obviously, that is part of the addressing the challenge. Is also a part of understanding, what will be the impact on your organization. From examples and from the projects I work on, there was always obviously identified risk with, okay, what if I will have to fire so many people? For example, what I told about moving into the digital with the banking value proposition and impact on branches. What we discovered was that actually there wasn't as much reduction in the business as there was a shift in the tasks and in what the resources were involved into doing. So basically, it helped with productivity a lot, where people were involved in a more complex and more kind of like profitable tasks for the company rather than doing automated tasks which could be automated by the machines. Obviously, there will be always risk of people being let go, etc., and that needs to be very, very carefully planned. I believe, as it was always with the revolution of any revolution, whether this was a steam revolution, etc., always had this impact. But again, the whole future of work, if you like, concept is something which we could deep dive much more into it in a separate conversation. I hope that at least gives high-level explanation or answer. How DX strategy can be aligned with other IT organization strategy, and who will manage which? Sometimes conflicts happens and people fight over authorities. Any suggestions? Yeah, so you see, this is such a good question, and that's really comes. I can see it comes from the experience, and I feel your pain and share your pain here. This is really when you have a very clear understanding of the end solution. Why are you doing this, and what's the business challenge? This is really then very factual conversation. When it is the more you can do preparation in advance and understand what is set the expectations right, the more you can, or the easier you can manage the conflicts that may appear. And to be honest with you, at the end of the day, there will be conflicts, and that's why it's also important for the change agent to be pragmatic and to understand, and really one thing I want to say is that when you embark on big digital transformation, often organizations try to appoint somebody from inside organizations, and it may work, but I think much more reasonable example is for a change agent to be somebody who is kind of like not connected with one part of the business per se, but is in a way objective and just working with the leadership team at the end, because that is the solution that helps manage those conflicts of interest of particular groups, if you like, and it really, for successful, especially when it's multi-million-dollar transformation, it really is important to hire talent that did it before and has the hands-on experience, if you like. After 2008, I've been working with digital transformation and in that space from 1990s, late 1990s. But in 2008, when there was obviously a lot of people lost their jobs, etc. I've seen a lot of people who actually went into the consulting space, and there was a lot of examples of people who claim they can play tennis because they watch a lot of Wimbledon. So I would like to mention that it's really important that you hire the right talent because that's mitigating also your risk of successful project. From a management point of view, how to deal with employees who can or won't go along with the digital transformation, usually the dinosaurs. Yes, that's again, it's a very, there are some tactics obviously, and I tell you that one of the very powerful tactic that works is basically if you give people solutions and you just don't give them enough kind of space to argue, just to say like this is the template, this is the way we will go. People usually embark, and the more people start embracing the change, that changes the rest of the organization as well. So obviously you need to make sure that you win the crowd, if you like, and you win critical people in all units. The other strategy I always implement is that the team that is responsible for driving digital transformation is the cross-disciplinary team that it actually is built from the people from different units. And it's not always the people that are senior. I want to say that, for example, when we were working with this bank on the digital transformation, we invited some clerks from the branches and some people from call center and project managers and some people from operations. And we created the unit because we wanted to have clear understanding, and also in a way nurture ambassadors who are our ambassadors, talking language of and understanding fears and helping us to change mindsets of those who are resisting change. And at one point, obviously, it comes also to individual preferences. So there, depend on the personality style. You will work with HR as well to help you, or you would like to engage HR to help you work with some personality styles and apply right tactics to help them embrace change. One of the things that people don't often address, and that is why people resist change, is when the leadership does not explain what's going to happen to me. Okay, as I said before, am I losing my job, or and what if, and then is it better for me or not? Because okay, it's better for organization, but what's about me individual? If I fear because I don't know what's next, then I will resist the change. So make sure that your communication addresses all those challenges. Please kindly share how. Yeah.
Dorota, if you don't mind me just interrupting, we're just coming up to the end of the session. We can keep it running a little longer if you'd like to tackle the remaining questions.
I'm okay if the people are.
I think that people would love that as well. I just want to, as well, for those of you still listening in here, the support team just posted a link to a SurveyMonkey survey for feedback on this session in the chat box. If you would be so kind as to provide us with your feedback on today's session, we'd love to hear that, and also get your thoughts on other sessions that we might conduct throughout this program. Thank you again. Back to you, Dorota, for the last few questions here.
Thank you. I see the question from, I'm sorry if I mispronounce your name, Adavala. It's again about culture shift, about mindset and leadership. And I hope that, my answers already kind of touched that. I see that, it would benefit from almost deep dive just in this category itself. What I'm very happy and pleased to see is that you do all realize that, digital transformation is not technology, pure technology play, that it's really, and it really comes with the, challenges like important factors like cultural change. For example, one of the examples I can give for driving again this cultural shift is obviously to bring some additional talent that is already a digital mindset into the organization, and kind of like build the teams to work together, so the other people can experience hands-on what does it mean to shift into the into the digital world. And by hands-on experience, they are less resistant to change. The question is regarding the deployment stage. Doing outside in and outside our assessment and creating the transformation roadmap is one thing, and deploying the solution and recommendation is another part. Would like to get your ideas on how to smoothen the deployment process. Well, to me, it's really a lot, comes to the planning and making sure that you have right resources. And when I say by right resources, not only right amount of resources, but also, resources that are on board with you, that, that sign up for your vision, etc. So, to be successful with deploying and execution is really also always linking back to the to the big vision, and never lose this big vision. And as I said, I read in this question that the challenge may come where people sometimes start diluting and start losing focus from the main drive and just adding something here, adding something there, and then the scope is changing and the whole project starts being like really pivoting in different directions. And this is where more and more uncertainty is being built and expressed, and people start being more and more uncomfortable. And this is where the where the risk is with the execution. So really, having experienced change management team, that is focused and keeps everybody in the, in a check for, for staying on track and on target is very, very important. How do you organize and make compatible business as usual and digital transformation teams? Transformation teams must be full-time, not part-time. You see, this is exactly the question where I don't really see that those teams are different teams, if you like. I would see this as a cross teams that are engaged, in between, and really, because digital is not the unit in the organization. Digital is every person in the organization needs to start thinking digital. What does it mean? So I showed you in a presentation set of examples, whether those are innovation workshops, whether those are, idea days, and so on and so forth. So all the activities that encourage everybody to kind of stop thinking business as usual and start breaking this silo and coming out of the comfort zone and challenging their own way of thinking, and for becoming more and more digital savvy. Obviously, the change champions and change agents will be those who will be responsible for fostering this curiosity and process and helping people to embark on this process. But it's really a responsibility of each and every individual to become, digital. It's not like there is one digital unit that is responsible in silo of the rest of the business to drive that business towards digital. That's not, I don't think it's an efficient way to do it, really. Hi, Dorota, thank you for the great examples. Before we embark on this transformation, we might also be asking about the time it will take for the transformation. What are your figures? Yes. So again, that's all part obviously of planning. Digital transformation, in my opinion, is never ending long-term project, because new technologies are coming, change is always and constant. New ideas, new businesses, new business models are appearing. So it's not really one stop and go project that you deliver and that's it. It will be, that's why Castle is about learning as well, because you will go through this process. But obviously, when you look at this way, then you need to look at this in phases, right? And then, when you look at a particular phase, it's easier to put it in some timelines. So for example, if you are transforming one part of business or one process, or you are transforming, building some new products, then it's easier to put it in timelines, what it will take. But that will be still linked and part of the overall long-term journey and the vision. My dashboard video is not streaming. Okay, those are already comments rather than questions. So I hope I answered your questions as much as time allowed, and we could discuss here. I encourage you, if you want to connect, I am happy to take your questions offline as well, through Alec or LinkedIn or another media. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Dorota. That was a great session. I know people could probably ask a lot more questions here. Great. Thank you, Marco, for confirming there. Sorry it took a while to get to your question. There were a few to get through before we got to yours. Comments still coming in on the chat window, Dorota. That was fantastic. We thank you very much for today's session, Dorota. And once again, for those of you listening in, we will be posting resources. The slides obviously will be posted as well to the course website shortly. And we will also post up some resources for you for additional reading. I know this is such a huge subject to cover, but I hope today, I think Dorota did a wonderful job of presenting these examples of where you can find, if you can take the learning from this session, is start thinking about the challenges in your own organization and how to address them with digital transformation, right? So how do you apply technology? How do you address the data issues within your company? How do you gather the data? How do you utilize that data to create a competitive advantage within your own organization? So thank you all for joining. And Dorota, it's been a pleasure, and we hope to see you again soon.
Thank you very much. And good luck with your digital journeys, everybody. Thank you.
Dorota, we can connect again offline.
Yeah, offline. Okay. Great. Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye.
Dorota, can you hear me?